Hello, you're listening to the K-12 Tech Podcast, bringing you insights in the world of education technology. Stay tuned as we discuss the past, the present, and most importantly, the future of technology in our schools. Welcome to the K-12 Tech Podcast. I am Sean. I'm at the Cleveland office, and we also have Mike, who's in Indiana. I am the Northeastern Region Sales Representative. Mike takes care of Indiana and Michigan?
And Illinois.
Yep. And in Illinois. And then we also have Chantell Manahan from MSD Steubenville, I believe.
Steuben County.
Steuben County, sorry. Joining us today to talk about kind of what her day-to-day looks like in the role she plays in technology and education. So I'm going to kind of give the floor to you, Chantell, and
sure,
away we go.
Okay, well, feel free to interrupt me if you need any clarification. I'll try to tell my story. Actually, Mike and I have met several times, and he reached out to me and said, "Hey, I saw your post about how you used to be a French teacher. That's pretty unusual that the French teacher became the technology director for the school corporation. That's pretty cool. Let's talk about that." So yes, I started my career as a high school French teacher. I did that for 6 years over in Bryan, Ohio, which isn't too far from me. And then I got a call 2 days before school started from my home school. I've always lived here in Angola, Indiana. And they said, we need an English teacher, and you want to be here with a 2-minute commute, right? So I packed all my classroom up over the weekend, and I started teaching English here. I came from a school district that was, pretty advanced in technology for the time. So we're talking 2008, 2007. We weren't quite one-to-one, but we had so many carts of MacBooks and iPads that I could have computers in my classroom all day, any day, if I wanted them. And being a French teacher, technology really is kind of a necessity. I'm teaching students, in rural Indiana, Ohio area. There are cornfields all around. How do I bring that world to my students? And so I started, dipping my toes into technology that way. And then they did this really crazy thing to me where they would say, small school district, they'd be like, well, Chantell, these 3 kids, they can't fit French 3 in their schedules. And I'm like, how do you do this? I'm losing my mind. I'm not serving my students very well. And I didn't even really know what blended learning was or a flipped classroom. But that's what I started doing because technology was available to me. And luckily I had a technology director who would listen to what I was trying to do, and he would help accommodate all of those things and make sure that it happened. So I started flipping lessons. I started creating all kinds of digital content. My students were creating digital content. And this was way before Google Classroom, and we were doing all kinds of crazy. Okay, so you have to create it from this folder because this folder is already shared with me. So everybody on the first day, create a shared folder. It was all worth it. So I was really blessed. And then I came back to teach here at my home school, and I walked into the classroom, no mobile device, didn't have a laptop as a teacher. The same desktop computer was sitting there with Windows XP on it that was there when I did my student teaching here. We hired a technology coordinator, really in charge of professional development for the district the second year I was teaching here. And she kind of sparked that digital momentum for us. So we started having professional development. She brought Google to us. And then I kind of became, you're the Google girl. You have experience with Google. Tell me how this works. So I started doing a lot of training here in the district. I was working on my principal licensure at that time. And I thought I'd be a principal, but that's not how things worked out. And our technology director retired. That coordinator took over. She only lasted 6 months in the job, and she realized this crazy is not for me. I like crazy, but I like a different kind of crazy. So she left in the middle of the year, and the superintendent came to my classroom. I was like, oh, I am in trouble. The superintendent does not come to people's classrooms. So he comes in and he says, so you have an administrator's license. You're the go-to person for technology around here. And I've seen you put on homecoming festivities, prom, and you just single-handedly managed our whole high school accreditation process. It's pretty mad organizational skills. Did you know we have technology administrators? And I was like, okay, well, I really don't know exactly what that's all about, but I love technology. I love teaching with technology, and I'll give it a shot. So I came in and I said I didn't really know what I was getting myself into. I knew a few of the technology directors in the state. I immediately put myself in, we have a CTO to be program, so a mentorship program for new and aspiring technology directors here in Indiana. And that's really kind of what started me on this path, is that we have this fantastic network of EdTech leadership established in Indiana, well established in Indiana. And they put me in the program. I got a mentor for the year, got linked up with lots of other prominent technology directors. And all of a sudden now I had people I could call, I could email. I have a question I don't know about. And I wasn't navigating this thing by myself in a small rural district. Instead, I have this great network of people. So now here I am in the day-to-day, and we're a small team. A lot of school districts have people for lots of different tasks. There are only 5 of us, including me. We are fortunate that we do sub out our Chromebook break fix to K-12 Tech, but other than that, we handle everything ourselves here. And that's a challenge, because even when I took over and we had begun that digital transformation, we completed our one-to-one Chromebook initiative on my watch. We began implementing e-learning days on my watch. We offer so much more support and so many more services and tools than we did 6.5 years ago when I took over. We've undergone dramatic changes. We just changed our student information system. We've taken on a huge interoperability initiative. Until about a year ago, when we got a new curriculum director, we drove all professional development here in our school district, basically for 5.5 years. So it's an enormous lift. So my day could vary. I could be literally out in a building moving equipment around if that's what's needed. I could be helping. I do have a data specialist now who handles PowerSchool and state reporting, but I could be hacking through a problem with state reporting and EdFi with her.
Wow, that is, yeah, I could see how you'd be incredibly busy every single day.
So I talked a little bit about that mentorship program that I joined, and that's through our state chapter of COSN. And COSN stands for the Consortium for School Networking. And they are the only professional organization for K-12 district level technology leaders. So their headquarters is in Washington, D.C., and they work kind of around a framework for technology leadership that is, there are 10 strands that fall under 3 buckets. So there's the leadership and vision bucket, there's the instructional bucket, and there's the operational bucket. And they're, the whole premise is that to be good at district technology leadership, you need all 3 of those buckets. You can't just have instruction only and not be an operational leader. You have to be the one driving vision and sitting at that really that superintendent's cabinet level. And so then every state can have a state chapter of COSN. They offer a certification called the CETL, the Certified Educational Technology Leader. And that's the only accredited certification for the district K-12 technology lead. And I mean, it's a pretty rigorous exam that they make you take that encompasses questions around those 3 buckets. And then you have to renew that certification every 3 years. So that's the same model that COSN uses for the CETL, is that we'll renew that every 3 years by proving that we've gone to professional development and hopefully gotten better at our jobs. So I'm on the board of our state COSN chapter. And there are 8 of us now, and we get together once a month just to work on visioning for the chapter and things that we can offer. So some things that we've done besides that mentorship program, which happens annually, we invite aspiring or new technology directors, we match them up with someone with experience. And then all year long, they study for that CETL, that CETL certification together. We also go through, there's a John Maxwell book called The 360-Degree Leader, which talks about how leadership isn't about titles, it's about how you influence other people. And if you're a leader, you're leading those people who follow you, who report to you, but you're also leading your peers. We get a lot of support from our state Department of Education, and our group is kind of that bridge between the IDOE leadership and what's happening in the districts. We actually have a representative from the IDOE who sits as a non-voting member on our board, and we always have had, and that's been huge to our success here as a state chapter. We do put on our own conference every year, and our conference is coming up. It's May 12th and 13th, and K-12 Tech is going to be a sponsor, so I'm excited to have you all there. But this year, I've been one of the 3 board members in charge of putting that conference together, which has been an incredible amount of work, incredibly rewarding, though. I love going to conferences. I know if you follow me on social media, you saw I was just at the COSN conference in Nashville. I'm headed over to the Brainstorm conference next week in Sandusky, Ohio. We have a great conference. HEC is in the fall. So I'm a big believer in that continued professional learning, and conferences are just the best because you're just immersed in that environment and you're around your people. There's energy when you're all in the room together and you're sharing ideas. And we don't get that in our day-to-day necessarily. Like Zoom makes it easier, but it's not the same as actually being in the same room with those other people. So the clinic is going to kind of cover the themes that, we and COSN, our parent chapter organization, we feel that, if you're an EdTech leader, there are certain like COSN initiatives like data interoperability, student data privacy. COSN offers a peer review process where they will have some of the CETLs come in. So I'm excited to hear some of those things that are going to be going on. And then if you're an attendee at our conference, we always have a Top Golf event, which is super fun too.
I thank you for sharing all of that. I guess a couple questions I had. So you mentioned you went through the mentor program. Who was your mentor, and how did you learn from him?
So there's always a big reveal. It's a big secret. So they send out a call for who wants to be in the program and be the mentees, and who wants to be a mentor in the program. And you don't know until we have a launch day in August. And you get down there, and Pete Just is in charge of the program, and he changes the slide, and it's a big reveal, and everyone's like, oh, who's paired with who? So my mentor was Jay Drew, and he's actually not a technology director anymore. He went back to the classroom teaching physics, but he was my mentor throughout that first year. And then I took a year off after I earned my CETL, but then the next year I started mentoring in the program. So it was a pretty awesome experience too. So I've mentored 2 people, and one didn't end up taking the CETL exam, but the one who did, she passed. So we got another CETL in there now. And that program always wraps up in May. It kind of ends for the year, and then we'll open the call out for the next round. So between May and the very beginning of August, we'll take applications for people who want to join up for next year, either on the mentor side or on the mentee side. So that'll happen. They'll open those up at the conference, the clinic, on May 13th, the end of that clinic. So that's going on.
I'm glad one of your mentees went on to take the exam and she passed. So that's great.
Yeah. So
yeah. And then so you had mentioned the national conference.
Yeah.
So I guess how does that differ from the state chapter?
Well, the national conference is really, it's on a grander scale, right? They bring in more people, more sessions, more days, and you really get connected with those people from across the country, or even, we had some attendees at the national conference from Canada. We have a CETL who's living in Europe right now that he attended virtually for the conference. They did have a virtual option, but he didn't come in. But you just get that grand scale. And whenever I go to a national conference, whether it's COSN or ISTE, I always leave feeling like so proud of the work we're doing in Indiana, because we're really fortunate of the leadership we've had, at the IDOE, and how friendly they are towards EdTech historically. They really understand our needs. That doesn't happen everywhere. There are states where, the Department of Education isn't supporting the work that's happening in the district, where they don't have a good working relationship, or, before the pandemic here in Indiana, thanks to the hard work we put in, almost every school district was one-to-one, at least at some grade levels, if not all grade levels. And then, just interesting, like hearing those different experiences where, there are still places that are just now, like post-pandemic, 2 years, like finishing their one-to-one implementation. But we have, state tech data for years that shows, less than 5% of districts were not one-to-one at least some grade levels. That's huge. And then the work that has been done at the Department of Ed to build capacity in teachers for, instructionally using technology. We had those summer of e-learning conferences that happened for years that are coming back this summer, re-rented, not e-learning anymore, just the summer of learning, but really opportunities for teachers to experience, kind of that world-class professional development, keynote speakers, energy and enthusiasm. So I think that's a big piece of the national conferences is, commiserating. Like, I don't care if you're from California or if you're from Indiana or you're from Canada, we're all struggling with the same problems. We're all like finding creative solutions, and just that exchange of ideas. One of the closing keynote from the National COSN Conference said, I wrote this down, and I'm gonna get a poster made up for my office, but it said, you come to conferences to dream big dreams, and don't let those dreams die when you go back to your district. I thought, wow, this is so powerful, because that is part of the whole experience is, you're building all these ideas, all of these things that you could implement eventually, making plans, making connections, and then like that's the key though. You have to act on them. You can't just come back and be like, oh, that was fun. No, now the work begins, right? So that was the national conference. I was able to give a session. We teamed up. So Pete Just, also from Indiana, and I represented the Indiana CTO Council. We teamed up with Ohio and New Hampshire, and we just had a session where we shared, how do we professionally develop those not just new and aspiring technology directors, but what do we do for our people who've been doing this work? Not every state or not every district is able to send people to the national conference. So bringing those ideas back and sharing them is huge for our momentum as well.
I know that's absolutely great. And that's what I love about that organization and just in general, schools working together. That's huge to me, because obviously you're all different school districts, but you're trying to achieve the same goals. So I love seeing you all working together. And I know you mentioned Pete just a couple times. So I did just hear he did just announce his retirement.
He did.
So I'm excited for him. Hopefully he'll get a little bit of rest, but I imagine he'll still be sticking around. So
I'm positive. I don't know that Pete can do anything without leading. I mean, really, he's been just an awesome mentor to so many of us here in Indiana, and I mean, he was the chair of the National COSN board for a couple of years. So, I mean, across the country, he's been our leader and a mentor to a lot of people. And we're really fortunate for the work that the groundwork he laid here. Then, hopefully, we have enough energy and enthusiasm. And I guess that's something else I should mention, that this is all volunteer work, right? No one's getting paid to be on the CTO council. No one's getting paid. Our perk in exchange for our volunteer work is the CTO council pays for part of our COSN national travel expenses. So they pay for our registration and they give us a stipend towards the hotel cost. But this is all work in addition to our normal job, in our spare time. This is what we do. is, try to build capacity in others and build connections with others. But, the rewards that it pays back out to us are so worth it.
Yeah, no, 100%. That's, again, something else I love seeing is, like you just said, this is an addition to your normal work. So that just shows you truly do care about the education technology world and helping schools improve, which I love to see. And I know it's one of the reasons I really enjoy working with you and your district, exactly for reasons like that. Trying to think, there was something else that you had mentioned that I wanted to bring up. So the CETL, so you said that was, it's like, I guess it's not just a national level thing. You said you have a Europe and a Canada person. So can just anyone pretty much apply for that?
So there are some requirements. You need either a bachelor's degree and 3 years of working in district Edtech, or if you don't have a bachelor's degree, 7 years of working in district Edtech. So those are like the qualifications. And then COSN has a study course that you can go through. They have either like facilitated, so you would meet like weekly with someone going through the course with you, or you can do the asynchronous and work through it yourself. And that's part of our mentorship program. I told you we do the 360 leader. We match people up. We pay for all of the mentees to have access to the asynchronous study course. And so they can kind of go through at their own pace. And then it used to be that you had to apply to give the CETL exam. So they always offered it at our CTO clinic in May. You would, like, the 3 or 4 people who were going to take it with you would sit in a room, and one person would be trained as the proctor, right? And you would take it. But it's actually done at all the like Prometric sites now. So you can sign up anytime they're offering that exam and go to the site and take it. And then you can even do it at home if you have, meet the tech specs and you download the secure browser. You can take it at home kind of at your leisure. And people who are going through that program can take the exam, whenever. They don't have to wait till May when the program is done. We had someone who'd been working as a technology leader. He took the test in September. He got access to the study materials, looked through some things he felt he needed to brush up on a little bit, and went out and knocked it out of the park. So I think we've had 5 of this year's mentees already take the exam. And, I feel really passionately about, growing other people, as evidenced by this work. But, something else I should mention is that my team, every year I've had someone go through. They're not the technology director, but my technology coordinator went through the program the year after I did. And he decided to go back to the classroom last year. But he has a CETL. My data person, Matt Buchanan, got a CETL 2 years ago, and now he left me mid-year. I professionally developed him into a technology director job at a neighboring district. So professionally developed him right out of ours, but happy for him. And this year, one of my technicians is going through the CTO to B program, and he passed his CETL exam in December. So, really awesome when your team all speaks the same language, your team all understands the same things, and they all like focus on, okay, well, yes, leadership and vision, instruction, operations. And it's just really, that common vocabulary and unified front for what EdTech should look like and how do we get there. So, I have 3 more people. Next year, I already have the next person ready to go through the program because that's our goal. Even if it means they leave us eventually, it's our job to make sure that we develop our people into the best versions of themselves.
Develop your students and develop your team. So
yeah,
that's wonderful. And like you said, sometimes it is painful to lose those people going up to a new job, but you train them well and they're excited for their future opportunities. And I know you definitely are, and it's rewarding to see your work watching people go up. So
it is. And, it also gives you a chance. I used to be a teacher, so that's another reason I love conferences and I love being a part of this. It's an opportunity to still teach, right? You're always teaching. You're teaching the people on your team. You're teaching the mentees in the program. I don't just love to go to conferences I love sharing the work we're doing, because people don't know. Like if you ask anybody, what does the district technology director do? Like, I don't know. It's at a computer. So, I mean, I think we don't necessarily do a good job of explaining. We don't tell our story very well. So that's been a real focus for me, is I want people to know, what this work is about. And I'll go back to, COSN had the State of Edtech Leadership report just got published. And almost a third of district technology directors, CTOs, are going to retire within the next year. Like, that's crazy. So how do we develop, a pipeline of people who are prepared for this? Because it is a special kind of crazy work to be the district technology leader. And, there are kids in our classrooms today, and some of them are, dreaming about being a teacher. Some of them are probably even thinking about being a principal. None of them are sitting in the classroom today going, I'd like to be the district technology director. That sounds really awesome. But they know what teachers do. They know what principals do. And that's really tangible. So if we're not telling the world what we're doing, then they'll never know. It's a secret. One of the superintendents at the COSN clinic said, we're almost like the great and powerful Oz behind the curtain, right? She's like, the magic people behind the curtain make all of the things happen. So like, I want to pull that curtain back a little bit, and I want people to realize, what exactly it is involved in this work, and what it takes to do it. And the only way is if we start explaining. And that's something else that kind of, taking this role, I had a lot of connections already in kind of the instructional coaching world or the principal world. Those people tend to be very, public about the work that they do. They're big on social media. They're big on sharing. And I kind of thought to myself, ooh, like I'm kind of leaving my people to become the technology director. I know a couple of them, but I don't know that, oh no, that I just didn't know yet. Like, these are my people, right? They're, it's that same level of like sharing. But a lot of them historically have been like, head down, grinding, doing the work. And it's time that we share what that work is about.
I think it's funny as you keep talking about the people that have trained under you or you've worked with, or people at the conferences. I also used to be a teacher. And then I got out of teaching and started working with K-12, still working with schools, but in a very different way. And, I think from what it sounded like, you kind of started using technology as a necessity because you had multiple grade levels at one time in the same class. And I truly don't understand how that worked, but good on you. But, and then, with the pandemic and COVID and moving to virtual learning, schools that weren't one-to-one were forced to be one-to-one, which, again, good for you guys for already being there. That's impressive. I know a lot of schools were calling us for, hey, we need 2,000 computers by like next week. And sorry, and there's not much we can do about that right now.
2,000, yeah.
So a lot of schools moved to that virtual or using technology because of another necessity. But I'm sure you've seen it and probably thought about it too. Do you see us ever moving away from the amount of technology that we're already using right now in classrooms, or is it just going to keep getting more and more involved?
I honestly don't see it ever going away. I do think we'll get in deeper. One of the famous things that they say at conferences that I go to is like, pull out your phone. The amount of technology you have right now, you will never have less technology than this. Like, less technology will not be available. You're carrying a whole computer in your pocket, and yeah, right on your wrist. You're right. In your ear, like it's everywhere. But I think, the challenge here is it can never be about technology for technology's sake. It always has to be rooted in advancing teaching and learning. And that's where, we are starting to see some people get kind of this technology fatigue, right? And they're like, oh, I just don't want to get on another Zoom, or another lesson on my Chromebook. Well, now we have options. when we were all quarantined, your only option was, right, you got to get on that Chromebook. But even then, in the hands of skilled teachers who are accustomed to using technology as part of their instruction, and students who are accustomed to learning with technology as part of their instruction, we have options. So, I'm a parent too, and I can tell you there were some beautiful virtual lessons that my kids did during quarantine. And my kids' teachers had them outside, use sidewalk chalk to draw a diagram of this science property, and then take a picture with your Chromebook and turn it on Google Classroom. Grab a book, and your mom needs to take a picture of you reading a book and upload it. Or you're going to do a Zoom or a Google Meet and read a book to your grandma and take a picture of your screen with grandma on it. It's all about, having those instructional goals in mind and then finding the way that technology fits to make those a reality. And the other piece is to getting our students and our teachers, instead of just consuming content, they need to be creating that content. They need to be creating those pictures of them doing things with technology and saving it. They need to be creating those, voice portfolios. They need to be building that, that capsule of, look at this learning that I've accumulated, and technology is a way for me to share it. It's a way for me to curate it, and it's a way for me to create. And that's hopefully the direction that we'll see as everyone's in school again, and teachers and students are accustomed to things. It's not putting a worksheet on a Chromebook is not good instruction, just like just giving a kid a worksheet every day is not good instruction. So there's the challenge.
I was gonna say, I think that's kind of the slippery slope, right? Mm-hmm. So you want to be engaging and exciting with the technology and use it to the best of its capabilities, but at the same time, what about those teachers who used to use, the textbook? You walk into class and they say, all right, read chapter 7. And then that's all you did. Where now let's go through the slides on the presentation that I made for you on Google Classroom. And that's what you're going to do all day, every day. And I think that's where it comes into, that's all on the teacher, right? That they're no longer instructing, or some of them are no longer instructing. They're just passing off the lessons that they made for COVID are now what they're doing in the classroom. And that's just not how it should be used. No.
And that's where you really see that fatigue come in, and you see, families being upset, students being upset. And I mean, you can't tell me that teacher is happy with that either. But there's so much fatigue. And I think that's really where teachers need support. And that's why, I thought I was going to be a principal, because I had 3 principals in 3 years when I taught over in Ohio. And I thought, teachers need more support than this. Teachers deserve someone who is going to, be an instructional leader in their building. And then teachers deserve, instructional coaching. They deserve, someone at the district or in their building who can kind of be charged with that. And that's something that I'm really proud. I think we've done a great job here with things. We used to always run a workshop model pre-COVID. So we would pay for a sub for the day for a teacher, and that teacher would come to the central office and just immerse themselves with the technology coordinator, in their learning for the day. They'd have time to learn new skills, apply them, start building their lesson using those new skills and tools. And, we often offered the same workshop session multiple times throughout the year. So we've been using virtual learning, like for a day at a time, a couple days at a time for inclement weather for 6 years. And, we did a lot of prep work with teachers before that. Here's what a good virtual lesson looks like. And then we got feedback from our families, from our students, and from our teachers. And then we offered more professional development. Here's what a good virtual lesson looks like. But then we'd offer that same workshop, 3 or 4 times during the year, because it's your chance to improve those lessons. So you can come all 4 times, because the lesson you started the year with should not be the lesson that you ended the year with. You should have learned more from the feedback of your parents and your students, and from the feedback of, more instructional tools at your disposal. You're more comfortable with them. Your students are more comfortable with them. It should look completely different. And I'm proud that we've been able to like keep that model going. And then we even offered it virtually during COVID to teachers. We offered those same things on our off days. We did instruction 3 days a week and used our waiver days. And on those off days, you know, we had sessions for teachers to build and grow. This year, we used part of our ESSER funding to fund a position that reports to the technology department. We're calling it the online safety specialist. And we hired a teacher to do it. She is amazing, but she monitors the content filter. That's her main job. And digital citizenship has become really proactive because as she sees students, you know, misbehaving as they will, she meets with each one of them. She conferences with them. They go through the acceptable use policy, talk about where, you know, they've been violating that. They may get their rights restricted for a little while, but then they meet with her again a couple weeks later. They get those lifted as long as they can explain, they can articulate what they did, how it violated the AUP. So that's been really cool. And then as serious issues come up, you know, we created some flowcharts. So like, when does she need to get guidance involved? When does she need to get a principal involved? When does the SRO need to be in on a meeting? But then she handles all of that. She handles our, you know, classroom management tools. She helps teachers with professional development on those things. She's been helping build lessons for the classroom. And that honestly used to be part of the technology coordinator's job. And because we've freed that up from the technology coordinator, who's the professional development person for our district, this year we've been able to move to a coaching model, which has been huge. So my technology coordinator, Jonathan Winslow, is amazing. He's new to me this year, and he'll go in and he'll do a 4-week coaching cycle with our teachers. So he'll go in, observe them teach, he'll model lessons for them, and then they take control back over that reading block or that math block or what have you. And all the while, you know, he's empowering them to, you know, embrace a blended learning model, to embrace what good instruction with technology embedded looks like. We have seen phenomenal growth in our teachers. And I'll tell you what, they were already great. So that's been so exciting.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, the more, again, coming from the classroom as well, you know, it's one thing to send out an email or, you know, a memo. Here's what we're going to try to do, whatever, but to actually get in front of somebody and walk through something with them is much more beneficial than even watching a tutorial or something online. Like, being there is just so much better. And conferences are great for that too. I miss going to conferences. They were so much fun.
Well, you should come to our conference then, because when it's not vendor time, you can go to sessions.
I might have to look into that. Well, they canceled the one here in Columbus. Edtech.
Yeah.
It was virtual again this year, which is a bummer because, you know, we missed it last year too. And I was really looking forward to this one, but maybe next year. I don't know.
Maybe next year. Yeah. And, you know, that's a great thing about, I'm like right next to Ohio up here where I'm from. So last year, Ohio has a COSN chapter, and I was able to attend their conference virtually last year, which was awesome. But then like developing those friendships like between state chapters of COSN too. So that's huge. We just were talking in Nashville with Mike Daughtry and Bill Fritz are from Ohio, and they're from their chapter. And we're like, how do we work together so that we're not both recreating everything? Because they've kind of looked at us, we kind of dropped the ball. Our state chapter did during COVID. We didn't run a mentorship program last year because of all of the craziness that was going around. So we decided this year we needed to really, you know, we needed to rebrand a little bit, and we needed to be more public. So we have we've made some commercials for our clinic and for COSN and for our chapter and for the mentorship. And we've really stepped up our social media game. We started putting out a newsletter, those kinds of things. And they're like, hey, how do we, can you send me that template for your newsletter? So again, just those connections and working together. It's really what it all boils down to, because it's that connection in the classroom that, you know, students and teachers are forming together. That's where the magic happens. And then teachers forming those connections within their building with teachers, you know, with technology, with teachers across the country, and then us forming that connection with our teaching staff. So all those connections together, we can build something pretty big. And if we're not all working in our own little silos.
And it is amazing. I mean, it truly is amazing. You mentioned Mike. He's, Sugar and Falls. Was my rival high school when I was in high school. So they're one of our clients now, and he's great to work with. But it's until I started in this position, I never knew that all these technology people knew each other at every single school, not even in the same area, but outside of the state or states away. And it really is an incredible web of networking that is in this industry.
Yeah. Well, and I think that, I don't know, I've ever worked outside of education. I don't know that it's like that everywhere, but education is a special place because, we're ultimately all in this for teaching and learning. I mean, no one, if I went to the private sector, I guarantee you I could be a technology director somewhere and probably double my salary. But some things are more important than that, right? So it's making a difference. It's impacting, all of these students, and hopefully, that experience that they have with technology is one small piece of what they take with them out into the world.
Yep, absolutely. I mean, what's next? Are we running for president, or
No, not running for president. No, I've gotten some job offers in the last year or so. But I live here. I'm happy with what I do. I'm really good at it. But I do, I want to keep working with the CTO council. I'm working on a superintendent's license, so that's pretty exciting. Again, I'm always learning, and I know I have a long time left to work in education. So I'm going to put that in the back pocket, and then I'm going through the EDS program at Indiana Wesleyan, and they just started an EDD program. So pretty sure I'm going to sign up for that, and I'll be Dr. Manahan in about 2 years. So the way their program goes. So I think that's on my roadmap for now. But I feel like I came into this position, and I like I said, I did not know anything about the job of being a technology director. And here I am 6.5 years in. I have my CETL. I'm pretty successful at what I do, but I know I can be better. Like, I know we can do more. I know we can serve more. I know we have a lot of, data work that I still want to work on, student data privacy things. COSN has Trusted Learning Environment seal, which is a pretty rigorous application process to prove that your district is committed to the top levels of student data privacy. Only a very select number of districts in the country have earned it. I do want to give a shout out to the one Indiana district is Zionsville Schools. Dan Layton is the tech director down there, the CTO. And
yeah, we actually do Zionsville Schools as well. So
see, Dan. But so shout out to them. They were one of the first round of recipients of the Trusted Learning Environment seal. And he tells an awesome, funny story about his second day on the job and getting a call from a parent lawyer who read him his rights about he wanted to know exactly what data on his student was being shared with whom. And Dan was like, okay, let me get back to you on that. And so he's done incredible work down there. And that's something that, I aspire for our district to get there. So I'm kind of a data girl. And I think part of that is, the background in foreign language, right? Like the grammar and the communication. And to me, data is just another language, right? So how do you make that language come together in meaningful ways? How do you wrangle it so instead of all your verbs conjugated correctly and all of your nouns declined, instead we're making sure that data is clean across services and that all that data is interoperable. So we've done a lot of work already in data here, but there's more we can do.
Yeah, that's great. Like I've said, I'm excited for Dr. Manahan. That would be awesome. Sean, do you have anything else? Any other questions?
Nothing else other than I'm incredibly impressed, and best of luck with the doctorate endeavor.
Thank you.
It's nice to stay busy, that's for sure.
Yeah. Then I guess this is pretty much it for today. Thank you everybody for listening. See K-12 Tech and Chantell at the Indiana CPO clinic May 12th and 13th. We'll be there, and I'm super excited to meet everyone. So thank you so much for listening.
Thank you for joining us.